Hey there, Bruce, and welcome back to Remember 11, Age of Infinity. Let's just carry on from where we left off, shall we? Because we are getting close to something now that we can, get outside. I returned to my room and lay face up on my bed, speculating. The moon. The ocean. I had no idea what was happening. It was like some black magic had been cast upon me. Everything about this was so totally irrational. I couldn't help feeling like I'd been cursed. If I wanted to escape from this curse, I should just gather my resolve, forget about everything, and make my escape from SPHIA. The ID card was still in my pocket after all. If I wanted to, I could go forth to this plan at any time. However, it's because I could go forth at any time that I returned to SPHIA. It's irritating, but I can't run away from here yet. If I did, what would happen to Kokoro, to Lin, to Yomogi? If I left them now, they'd be caught up in an avalanche and die on January 17th. I couldn't abandon them. There's no way I could do something like that. And then there was the matter of the murderer pursuing me. And I still had plenty of questions about the transference phenomenon. It was impossible for me to just forget about all these mysteries after all. It's just the way I am. Until everything's been resolved, I'll stay here, come what may. I'll never be satisfied if I didn't. It'd be fine for me to make my escape after that, because the possibility remained open to me as long as I had my ID card. As I lay brooding over it, a transfer occurred. Kokoro's body was on a bed. It was, so to speak, sitting like a girl. I stretched out my legs, then jumped off the bed. Present time, 12:01 AM. The date had already changed. I could see Yuni and Lin up on the bunk beds. It sounded like they were asleep, but I could hear them breathing. I mean, you breathe when you sleep, right? But I couldn't see Yomogi anywhere. I took a look down into the storeroom, but there was nobody there. Where'd the old man go? I tried opening the door. Yomogi was standing outside, standing with his back to me. He was gazing up at the moon. Even though he should have heard the sound of the door opening, he didn't turn around. I hesitated. Should I tell him the truth or not? That sea is likely still here even now, surrounding this little hill where the shelter cabin stands. If you climb up it and then descend the slope, you can reach the coast. Should I tell him? Now's not the right time. That's what I thought. Even if the four of us escape from here, it won't solve everything. Right now, Kokoro's consciousness is in my body, and at the same time, my consciousness is in Kokoro's. What would happen if I left Mount Akakura in this state? It's quite plausible that we get stuck like this, unable to ever return to normal. And even if we could, that wouldn't necessarily mean the end of the transference phenomenon. I'm not really sure, but I have a hunch that it's going to continue forever. I'm repeating myself now, but we can escape at any time. If I rush things, I could run the risk of causing irreparable damage, and that would cause big trouble. So I just kept quiet. I decided not to tell Yomogi about it. Right now, my top priority is to clarify the cause of the transference phenomenon. Now is not the time to be taking risks. As I stood there thinking, Yomogi suddenly spoke up. Tomorrow is Junichi's birthday. Junichi is our son. Bathed in moonlight, he looked somewhat small and lonely. Smoke climbed into the air from the cigarette between his lips. The long sigh that issued from those lips came out in a burst of pale vapor. How old will he be? I stood beside him and asked, gazing up at the waning gibbous moon with him. No, he'll never celebrate a birthday again. He was killed by a girl called Inabushi Kaiko on January 14th, 2 years ago. Tomorrow's the anniversary of my son's death, the day he was given life and the day it was taken away from him. I couldn't say anything. I couldn't find the words. On any other occasion, I'd have been surprised to hear the name Inabushi Kaiko, but for some reason my mind had gone completely silent. All the agitation and confusion deserted me, as though they'd all died away. A calm stillness reigned, but deep in my chest a bitingly cold pain ate at me. But Junichi gave us a new life. In my wife's womb, another life is growing. You may think it's foolish, but to us, that life became our hope. Until then, we were lost in the darkness. But with the baby, we finally found a new light. Of course, we haven't forgotten Junichi. Even now, every day. No, to tell you the truth, I think about him day and night without rest. If only I could, just once more, I would want to hold him in my arms. But, we thought that maybe this new life was given to us by Junichi, so we accepted it with open hearts. She's due in August. I wanted to go visit his grave, to thank him, but at this rate, I don't think I'll make it in time. How did it turn out this way? The ash from his cigarette dripped onto the snow like tears. With a faraway look in his eyes, he gazed up at the orb in the sky. Poor Seiji. Fourth day. Oh, we're back here again? 3:30 AM. I'm sitting in the corner of the living area. I'm doing this in order to ambush a certain someone the moment she leaves her room. If my intuition is correct, she'll definitely come. Last night, after listening to Yomogi's story, I'd burrowed into my bed at the shelter cabin and fallen deep into thought. Completely unaware of what was happening around me, I'd suddenly found myself back at SPHIA. I came to on my own bed, my eyes closed. From the position of my body, I could tell that Kokoro's consciousness had already gone to sleep, but I didn't feel the least bit tired. A flurry of sparks were going off inside my mind. Instead of counting sheep, I was absent-mindedly thinking over everything that happened over the last few days. When I say thinking, I don't mean my usual meandering. I believe that all our problems were interconnected, like the mesh of a net, and had built up upon each other into a complex, multi-layered structure. If I think about one problem, I have to consider about another related problem as well. And when I start thinking about that, yet another one comes to mind. Like this, my thought process continues on and on without end. If I could grasp the thread and reel it in somehow, I feel like all the pieces would fall into place right away. But at present, nothing made me feel like I was getting any closer to finding it. If I could only continue to grope my way through the fog of endless questions spreading out around me. If I strive to see it as a whole, I lose sight of the details, and if I try to narrow my field of vision and study a particular point, I lose my perspective on the essentials of the whole thing. This is a dilemma, but I also couldn't continue to flounder this way. I have to keep going forward, without worrying about failure. Forward. Ever forward. And in order to do that, I have to make up my mind and start cutting this chain apart at the links. If I can't disentangle the snarl of yarn, then I have no choice but to snip it apart into manageable bundles. For convenience sake, I named the big proposition that incorporated every aspect of the problem, R. Following that, I sorted the contents of R into three main parts. R1, the personality transfer. R2, my goals at both Aosagi Island and Mount Akakura. R3, Uzumi and Hattori. Below, I'll list everything I figured out up until now. R1, the personality transfer. First off, this phenomenon began on January 11th at around 8 to 9 PM. Ever since then, each transfer from Aosagi Island to Mount Akakura occurred irregularly, following no apparent schedule. On the other hand, I did discover irregularity in the transfers from Mount Akakura to Aosagi Island. The time of my transfers on January 12th, 1:07 PM transferred to shelter cabin, 1:40 returned to SPHIA. 6:03 PM transferred to shelter cabin, returned to SPHIA. 7:33 PM transferred to shelter cabin, 8:06 PM returned to SPHIA. The times of my transfer on January 13th, 1:52 PM transferred to shelter cabin, 2:25 PM returned to SPHIA. 10:15 PM transferred to shelter cabin, 10:48 PM returned to SPHIA. As the above list indicates, the period of time my consciousness can spend at Mount Akakura is limited to 33 minutes. It seems clear that these 33-minute periods of time allow for no fluctuations and are more or less the absolute rule. Of course, I say this from my own standpoint. For Kokoro's consciousness, it's the exact opposite. The period of time Kokoro's consciousness can stay on Aosagi Island is set at 33 minutes, but there's no rule governing her time on Mount Akakura. In this manner, we transfer back and forth between our bodies. When I'm in her body, she's in mine. When I'm in my original body, she's in hers. Something like that, anyway. The next step is to come up with a strategy for bringing this phenomenon to a conclusion. I wish to end these annoying and puzzling personality transfers as quickly as possible, and Kokoro probably feels the same. It's only natural. Kokoro and I just want to lead a normal life. We want to fall in love, work, play, build a family, and eventually become grandparents just as much as anyone else. We long for that kind of normal human life. I have no intention of being endlessly jerked around by some personality transfer. What's more, these transfers aren't occurring in parallel, at the same point on the time axis, but across a 1-year time gap. In other words, a time jump and a personality transfer occur together. A really, honestly, seriously, maddeningly, accursedly annoying situation. If I can speak plainly, what I'd really love to do is wash my hands of it completely and run away to some tropical island. But even if I escape to Sidonia, on the planet Mars, there's still no guarantee that the transfers would stop. And that's why I have to find a way to solve it, all here and now. Because it could very well be that the one fated to die in the avalanche on January 17th, 2011 might not be Kokoro, but me. And even if, for argument's sake, it were Kokoro's consciousness, I'm not sure that what would happen to my body after that. Perhaps the transfers continue even after one of us dies. And if that's the case, the next time I transfer, that would mean I'm buried forever under the snow. Just the thought of it makes my hair stand on end. I've got to do everything I can to keep that from happening. Our time limit is drawing ever nearer. By January 17th, 3 days from now, we'll have to figure out this phenomenon and put an end to these transfers, no matter what it takes. That's my mission. But to find the solution, I first have to ascertain its cause. And to tell you the truth, I haven't the slightest idea how I'm going to do that. However, I do have plenty of information, and some part of it might even hold the very clue that I need. The moon. Why did I see the same phase of moon, both on Mount Akakura and Aosagi Island? The phase that I observed last night, January 13th, in both places corresponds to this night in 2012. The ocean. Once I climbed out of that bowl-like hollow, why did I see the ocean? And it wasn't as though I saw it in the distance either. It was right there, right under our noses. Moreover, if I open the gate at SPHIA on Aosagi Island, there's an ocean waiting for me too. What does it mean? The existence of Yuni. And up until now, I was convinced of this. The Yuni who exists in the body, in body at Mount Akakura was the same one who, at the end of a long struggle, had finally reached the shelter cabin after surviving the crash. And the Yuni at Aosagi Island was the one who had been found by the rescue team on January 17th, 2011, and come to SPHIA 1 year later. After that, they experienced the same transference phenomenon as Kokoro and I, but only swapped bodies once. That's the reason behind the various discrepancies in their memories and other problems, or so I imagined. But that doesn't seem to be the case. To begin with, for the two Yunis to have transferred only once, while Kokoro and I have transferred back and forth many times, is unnatural no matter how you think about it. Is there any one conclusion I can draw from this? No, it's still nothing more than a hypothesis. I'll have to reinvestigate this once I've gathered more proof. R2, the things that I have to accomplish at both Aosagi Island and at Mount Akakura. I've just taken it upon myself to make figuring out the transfer phenomenon and putting it to an end my goal. To be honest, they sort of take a back seat to my other two goals. In other words, beyond just figuring out the transfer phenomenon, I have two other duties that I consider to be more important. The first is finding out who's trying to kill me at Aosagi Island. Of course, since my investigation would be meaningless if I lose my life in the process, it goes without saying that my goal here is to give whoever it is the slip and stay alive. Who was it that pushed me off the clock tower, tried to drown me in the bathtub and stabbed me in the dark? Is it Hattori, Utsumi, or an unseen fifth person? It definitely can't be Yuni. No, I can't completely deny that possibility. How the hell did things turn out this way? How did I get stuck in this state of affairs with someone out to kill me? Anyway, it's a fact that someone is after my life. I've got to figure out the truth as soon as possible. In order to wipe out this grave threat, it's urgent that I find the culprit and put a stop to their plans. My second objective, compared to the first, is sure to be even more difficult. If the enemy at Aosagi Island is human, you could say that at Mount Akakura the enemies are nature, time, and fate themselves. The forces of nature which no human can control. Those are the opponents I must fight against. That's right, my second goal is to rescue the 4 survivors from Mount Akakura. According to the history I know, 3 of those 4 are going to be caught up in an avalanche on the 17th and die. Moreover, one of these 3 is Mayuzumi Lin, the woman I went out with a long time ago. From my point of view, it's been 1.5 years since our breakup. For her, it's only been 6 months. My romantic feelings for her have already faded, but even so, the pure affection I held toward her never changed. But she sucks. Our relationship of 2 years forged a special connection between us. Even though we broke up, there's no way I can view her as just a stranger now. Mayuzumi Lin was an important person to me. And now, if you view them in the same terms of affection, my feelings for Fuyukawa Kokoro equaled my feelings for Lin. For these past few days, Kokoro and I have shared our bodies. We are made to experience the same situations and overcome many difficulties together. Kokoro and I are, quite literally, united in body and soul. Strictly speaking, there are 2 important points that join us this way. The death of Fuyukawa Kokoro, directly or indirectly, and in every sense of the word, means the end of Yukido Satoru. And the death of Yukido Satoru, in turn, means the complete disappearance of Fuyukawa Kokoro from this world. Be they relatives or lovers, they can hardly be 2 separate individuals anywhere in the world with a relationship as intimate as ours. Yet we've never even met face to face. She's further from and yet closer to me than anyone else. She is my fate, an existence equal to my own life. Of course, that doesn't mean I don't care about Yomogi or Yuni, although it's a little different than how it is with Kokoro. We too are comrades brought together by fate, make no mistake. Though all the times we've met, I've started to feel a sort of empathy and affinity with them. However, now that we've already made so many memories together, my desire to save them rivaled that which I felt for Kokoro and Lin. That's why I have to save the 4 refugees in Mount Akakura. Lin, Kokoro, Yomogi, and Yuni at any cost. I won't allow them to die on January 17th as history dictates. I'll change history, definitely, absolutely. I'm the only one in the world who can do that. Yomogi, Lin, and Kokoro are people of the past, so I guess they won't believe the story in that newspaper so easily. To a certain extent, some of them take an optimistic view to their fate, even with all they know. But I don't. I can't possibly think that way, because I'm from the future. According to the rescue team, Yuni was the only survivor. That's what was going to happen, and among the refugees at the shelter cabin. Only I know it. And maybe Yuni too, I wonder. Does he know? I don't know for sure, but in either case, I can't count on his help now. So that means that I'm the only one who can change the past. The only one who can rewrite history is me, a man from the future. In conclusion, I have to find the culprit at Aosagi Island, save the 4 people at Mount Kokoro, and simultaneously solve the matter of the transference phenomenon. A really, honestly, seriously maddening and cursedly annoying state of affairs. This alone is complex enough to fry every synapse in my brain, but on top of that, there's one more thing I have to think about. Utsumi and Hattori. Yomogi told me last night that their son Junichi was killed at Iwazumi Municipal Hospital on January 14th, 2009. To Yomogi, that was 2 years ago, and to Utsumi, 3 years. The life of Junichi, then 9 years old, was snatched away by the hands of Inubushi Kaiko. Her motives were unclear, but it is said that it was a murderous fit brought on by her abnormal state of mind, and because of her, an innocent boy died senselessly. Can such a thing ever be forgiven? Inubushi Kaiko even now is living a carefree everyday life here at SPHIA. No, I'd better rephrase that. Even now, Suzukage Hattori is. The one who committed the crimes at Iwazumi Municipal Hospital was probably the Suzukage Hattori personality. I still haven't spoken to the Inubushi Kaiko personality, unless she's lying. But I understood. Hattori had behaved in certain ways in order to play with my emotions, and she didn't hesitate to kill that rat with a single blow. After seeing such eccentric behaviour, abnormality and even cruelty from her, the conjecture that Hattori was the true murderer had turned into conviction. I think that within Inubushi Kaiko, the personality that holds authority over the others is Hattori. The fact that Hattori is the only one I've ever been able to talk to, so far, is because she's the one controlling Inubushi's body this whole time. And on that day, she took the lives of 12 people. Without any particular reason, just because of an impulse during her fit, she crushed those people like insects. I felt the Suzukage Hattori would have no problem committing that inhumane act so casually. Just thinking about that incident is enough to make me feel a heavy sorrow in my heart. When I think about how it was just a way for her to express the emotions suppressed inside her, just for that, innocent lives were lost. A heart-rending, almost unbearable misery sunk through my chest. Even I, a person who was in no way involved with that incident, felt like this. How deep a hatred must a parent who lost their own child feel toward that killer? What would I do if my own child was so senselessly murdered? If one day, without warning, someone irreplaceable was stolen from me? If my peaceful life was smashed to pieces, torn from its roots, I would definitely kill her. I'd kill her. The same way she killed my child. No, I'd be even more cruel. Could Utsumi have come to SPHIA for that purpose? She came here for revenge? I don't know how she managed to get into SPHIA, but anyway, for the injured party and the assailant to have converged in the same place can't be a coincidence, right? Today, January 14th, is Junichi's birthday as well as the anniversary of his death. There's no doubt that Utsumi is going to try something. I'd felt an intense uneasiness once I realized that. Sorry. Just getting coffee. That's why I'm here right now, waiting for Utsumi to come out of her room. It's past 4 AM now, the same time that Hattori crept into Iwazumi Municipal Hospital. If Utsumi is out for revenge, she's not going to let this chance slip away. However, if, as I predicted, Utsumi comes out of her room right now, what would I do? I still hadn't decided. Would I say stop this nonsense and restrain her? Or would I hide in the darkness and silently watch her break into Hattori's room? I really don't know myself why I'm trying to ambush her, but no matter what, I couldn't just sit there in my room and do nothing. Outside, the darkness of the night still reigns supreme. Because of the season and our latitude, the sun doesn't rise here until well after 7 AM. I wait for her, holding my breath, trying to conceal my presence, and clearing my mind, I focus entirely on listening. I heard the sounds of a door opening. Just as I expected, Utsumi appeared. Almost gliding through the darkness, she headed toward the kitchen. Doing my best to hide my presence from her, I followed. Utsumi leaned down in front of the sink. She appeared to be searching for something in the cupboard below it. "What are you doing here?" I said quietly. Startled, she jumped. "What? What are you—" "Well, nothing, really." I was a little thirsty, so I thought I'd get a drink of water. She slowly stood back up. The door of the cupboard was hanging open. There shouldn't be any cups or bottled water down there, though. Her lips betrayed no movement. She silently walked over to the opposite corner of the kitchen and took a glass from the cupboard. "So what are you doing here?" she asked, her back to me. I couldn't see her expression, but there was the very slightest tremor in her voice. Oh, I'm so thirsty. We're a thirsty boy. "I came to watch over you," I answered. "Watch over me? Why?" "Because I thought you'd definitely show up at this hour." "I'm afraid I don't understand what you mean." When she turned around, she held 2 glasses in her hands. "Anyway, won't you have a seat?" As urged, I pulled out a chair. She made her way over to the fridge and opened the door. She took out a bottle of mineral water from inside. "Itsumi-san, you were lying about being thirsty, weren't you? There's a fridge in your room, and there should be mineral water in it. There's no need for you to drag yourself all the way to the kitchen just for a drink of water." A thin smile formed in her face as I confronted her. "I ran out. There wasn't any water left. That's why I came here. But anyway, won't you have a drink?" She put 2 glasses down on the table and poured water into each. "It's definitely poison. Here." She placed one of the glasses in front of me. No! Refused. Her behavior was way too suspicious. It was possible she drugged the water while her back was turned. That's what I thought. I pushed the glass away. She furrowed her brow and tilted her head slightly. "You don't want it?" "Yeah, sorry." "I see." With that soft whisper, she walked over to me, narrowing the distance between us. She stood in front of me, gripping her own glass tightly in both hands. She stared at the transparent liquid inside. We didn't move. Neither she nor I stirred. An air of unease enveloped us. Beyond the darkness that separated us, I could barely hear the faint sound of her breathing. Standing there wordlessly in the dark, she resembled nothing, so much as a malicious spirit, that had wandered free of its earthly body. I couldn't feel the slightest warmth from her. And at last, without raising the glass to her lips, she put it back down on the table. "Aren't you going to drink it?" "No." "Why? Why do you think?" I looked at her face. She stood over me, looking down at me as I sat at the table. "Is that because there's something bad in it, perhaps?" "That's not the reason." "Then why?" "It wasn't the water I wanted to drink." "Something like this can't quench my thirst." Whispered words. I couldn't read her eyes. Her eye sockets were veiled in shadow, looking blank and hollow as though her eyes had dropped out, leaving only empty cavities. "You know, Yukido-kun?" She extended a thin finger toward the glass. She traced its outer rim and then dipped her fingers in the liquid. She slowly tipped it toward me until it fell over. The water began to spill out and spread across the table as if crawling. Finally, it reached the edge and ran off, dripping to the floor in a thin stream. I watched all this in silence. I was captivated by the falling drops of water, and at that instant, something stabbed the back of my neck. There was a piercing pain that momentarily dyed my vision white. A dazzling light flashed before me, then shattered into pieces. My vision soon returned. However, the scene my eyes beheld was slightly different from the one I just left. My line of sight was tilted at a right angle. I could feel the hard floor against my cheek. I'd fallen face down onto the ground. I tried to pick myself up, but I couldn't put any power into my arms or legs. It was still physically possible for me to move, but I couldn't remember how. What had just happened? My consciousness was hazy and I couldn't string my thoughts together. I wanted to look around me, but my neck wouldn't move the way I commanded it to, so there was nothing I could do. All I could move was my eyeballs, which I darted around frantically. I looked up and saw Itsumi standing stock still beside me. Her right hand was clutching an object I remembered seeing before. An object shaped like a gun. An injection gun, the same one she'd shot Hattori with. I won't let anyone interfere. No one can stop my plan. Plan? My prediction had hit the mark. This woman came to SPHIA to kill Hattori. No, Inabushi. I wanted to say something, but I couldn't get my voice to leave my throat. I was careless. Why did I ignore the signs? I felt disgusted at myself for letting my guard down for even a second. What was the point of even coming here to watch over her? Don't worry. You won't be able to move for a while, but that's all. Her voice was getting more and more distant. Little by little, my consciousness began to fade. Goodbye, Yukido-kun. With those parting words, she disappeared from view. I couldn't just let her go like this. I couldn't let her kill Hattori. The grand struggle against the demon lurking inside me had now begun. I struggled frantically, trying to grasp hold of my dimming consciousness. First, I tried focusing all my nerves into my fingertips. I was barely able to move my pinky. Quickly, so as to not forget the sensation, I fired off the commands to my ring, middle and index fingers. Using this method like a magic spell, I turned my entire body back on little by little. I tirelessly continued my work. Eventually, I found myself able to move my hands up to my palms. Then the feeling returned to my arms, and gradually, I regained control of my feet. Although that said, I was still unable to lift my body. I crawled along the floor, chasing after Utsumi. Damn it! The word leaked out before I could think. My vocal cords seemed to be showing signs of recovery. She probably shot me with a powerful tranquilizer. In spite of that, why could I still move like this? It could be that the specific type of tranquilizer had already been administered to me several times in the past, so my resistance to the drug was already quite high. As I pondered that, I somehow managed to reach the living area. Utsumi was standing at the door to Hattori's room. Something glinted in her right hand. I stood up, leaned unsteadily against the wall. One step at a time, I began to approach her. She hadn't noticed me yet. I moved forward with the utmost care, trying not to make a sound. If I lose focus even for a second, I'll fall over. My vision warped and swirled dizzily. The images reflected in my eyes were vague and hazy, so I wasn't sure if I was even heading in the right direction. Relying on only the feel of the wall beneath my fingers, I continued through the darkness. Finally, I drew right up behind Utsumi, Her hand was on the doorknob. Slowly, she began to turn it. And right after that, faster than the eye could see, I grabbed her wrist. Huh? Never releasing my hold, I covered her body with mine as though in an embrace. The momentum carried me to the floor, bringing her down along with me, and we rolled across the floor in a tangle. I hadn't planned on it, but I ended up pinning her down. She, lying face up on the floor, and I, right on top of her. She struggled below me, all of my body weight pressing down against her. In her right hand was a horribly sharp knife, a kitchen knife. She probably pulled it out of the cupboard after I fell over in the dining area. I held her tightly by the wrists, refusing to let go. My body felt like an old tin toy with its parts rusted together, but the strength of my hands, at least, never wavered. Move. Let me go. What are you doing? No, I won't let go. As long as I'm here, I won't. I won't let anyone die. My joints creaked. I pulled away from her. Pinning her wrists with my left hand, I pulled the knife from her with my right. Then I hurled it away into the living area. With a dry sound, the kitchen knife disappeared into the darkness. Maybe it was because of the relief I felt, but as soon as I heard that noise, I was attacked by an overwhelming sense of exhaustion. I rolled powerlessly to the floor beside her. She didn't even allow me a moment of rest. She suddenly sprang onto me, grabbed me by the torso, and pulled me violently to my feet. Why are you interfering? This has nothing to do with you. So why? She shook me back and forth. I didn't have enough strength left to fight back. I went limp, my head rolling on my shoulders like a doll's. Why doesn't anyone understand? That girl is a natural-born killer. No, she's not even a girl. She's not even human. She's a demon. If you let her live, I guarantee there'll be even more victims. So, why? Why does everyone always try to protect her? How can you allow a demon like that to live a carefree everyday life? Even though he was killed so horribly. I'll never forgive her. I'll never forgive her. I'll kill her no matter what. Utsumi had finally revealed her true nature. Her calm face had been torn away, replaced with that of a demon. Her long silver hair was disheveled, her pupils abnormally wide. A pattern of hives had begun to mar her brown skin. Livid veins spread cracks across her face, shrouding it until she looked no different than a corpse. The only thing visible there were the warped features of a cruel, murderous monster, all human blood, frozen and immobile in her veins. As if Utsumi had summoned a demon to claim Hattori, but found herself possessed instead. The way she looked, you could almost believe that she was playing the part of the villain in some tragic melodrama, but the murderous aura she now emanated was no different from that of a mental patient capable of flying into a killing rage at any moment. A hatred and a grudge so that this strong could almost certainly be considered an illness to which, over time, an ordinary human being might succumb. And if that were true, Utsumi was most likely attempting to expel the sickness from her body by killing Hattori. How is that any different from what Hattori had done during the Awazumi incident? There wasn't even a fragment of anything like a great ideal here. You could even say she was driven only by the mad brutality festering inside her. I pitied her. Her condition didn't inspire even the slightest feeling of anger or hatred within me, only a deep, deep sadness. And with that, we need to wrap this episode up here. But, things are going to be awkward, I think, wait, if we can't fight back, why doesn't she just go get the knife again and kill her? Like, we can't fight back, we threw the knife away, she can just get up, go get the knife, go back, kill Hattori. I don't know. Maybe she took out all anger on us. But we're still alive, so I guess not. Anyway, we'll see you next time. Thanks for watching, Bruce, and I'll see you in the next one.